Hey everybody, welcome to Sunday at Mike's. Thank you so much for spending your time with us this Sunday evening. Time is a valuable commodity, and spending a little bit of yours with me is greatly appreciated. How's everybody out there doing this evening? So good to see you. Well, what a week it's been. I have to say that Ben is here. Good evening, Mike and friends. I hope you're all doing well. Merry Christmas. Yeah, Merry Christmas to you too. We'll be doing a live stream next Sunday, Christmas Eve. I am going to be out of town and then I'll be back in time for that. So we'll do a Christmas Eve live next Sunday. But we'll say Merry Christmas, an early one to everybody right now. That's okay. Yeah, my brother was here, my sister-in-law, as you know, this last week. So it was go, go, go. Monday, Tuesday, going around. I went to my first European Christmas market. I've never been to a quite feast for the eyes and the senses, I have to say. Hey, Mickey, hello to you and a Merry Christmas to you. Um, it was quite a thing. A lot of food, a lot of interesting things, and it was in the Den Haag, so up a bit from here, about an hour's drive, not that far. And it was something. I had to say, it was beautiful. Actually, it was illuminated, and it was rainy as hell. And there wasn't a lot of people because it was a weekday. I think that was Tuesday. Yeah, it was a Tuesday. So it wasn't very packed, which is good because I had a neighbor of mine who went to a Christmas market in across the border in Germany, and she unfortunately caught the coof. So maybe, but it's certainly something not good. And I think that's because it was a weekend that she went and it was packed. So it really was good to go there on a weekday when there wasn't a lot of people. Is the point of that story. That helped because there's a lot of bugs going on here in Europe right now. I don't know how it is over there in the States or in the UK or wherever else you guys are hailing in from this evening. But over here, you seriously want to wash your hands as much as possible, believe me. Uh, but that didn't deter from the beauty of the Christmas market and spending time with my peeps. So that was good, and that was about it for this week. And then I've had to do my regular work, and it's just been a whirlwind. And this weekend I didn't get very much of a chance to rest either. So I hope the upcoming holidays will bring me a little bit of time to get away from it all. That's the plan. We'll see how that works out. I'm hopeful. Ben Allmark says a lot of bugs going on here in Canada too. I've been lucky, but it's everywhere. Yes, I really, really strongly suggest to each and every one of you out there, when you go out, you come back in, wash your hands. Gargle, use colloidal silver like I do. That's great stuff if you can get your hands on it, and just try to sanitize yourself as much as possible. Mickey Newman, I'm back in the UK after my American adventures. Everyone seems to have a cold or flu-like symptoms. Yeah. Bobby is here. Bob, welcome, sir. Welcome to the house. Bob, everybody in the room and everybody in the net landlord. Yeah, Bob's here. Welcome, Bob. Thank you so much for showing up tonight, brother. I'm so glad to see you. Yeah, dig that, man. I mean, it's some out there. When I'm walking my dog just around the block, I'm like this. Because there's a lot of tourist hotels on this street, so you got folks from all over. But anyway, so far, other than that little bit I caught last week, it's all good. Manny Two Hot's in the house. Shazam, welcome. So, funny stuff. Where shall we start at tonight? Always places to go, but always a question of where to start. It's like an episode of the Twilight Zone. It starts cool, but it gets twisted real fast. Well, I thought I'd start out with a very interesting list here. Recently, Reverb came out with its list of its top sellers of this previous year. The guitars, electric guitars, that most people everybody mostly gravitated towards, and I found the list extremely interesting. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but coming in at number 1 was the PRS SE Silver Sky. Interesting. That is a $550 US guitar. So I find that very interesting. It's right in that 550, 600 range. Number 2 on the list is the Fender Player Stratocaster. Again, a guitar that's, in a 650 range. You can get them I've seen them here for 5. Number 3 was the Fender Player Telecaster. Again, we're talking about, so the point of these top 3 is there was a range there in prices in the 5 to 600, 650 range on the top 3 guitars that sold this year. I find that extremely interesting. It's only till you get to number 4 where you get into the Fender American Pro 1 Strat. Those are a little pricier, obviously. It's not until you get to number 5 on the list that you even begin to hit a Gibson. In this case, it's my old guitar that I had, the Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s. Great pickups on that guitar. I have to say that Standard 60 pickup combination is a growler. But it's very interesting that on this list, Les Pauls do not reign supreme. As a matter of fact, Fender has the 2, 3, 4 spot, with PRS taking the number 1 spot with that SE Silver Sky. And so, I find that interesting that Fender has been able to capture a market there. I'd say they're certainly inspiring people to purchase these on Reverb. And Reverb, covers a lot of territory. We're talking about small dealers, private dealers, to major dealers do work on advertiser stuff out on Reverb. So it's a good place to kind of get a good mean as to what's going on out there in terms of sales. So I like this list. And again, we're seeing that Fender is really dominating. Now, that number with that, everybody really is digging that PRS SE, which I do believe is made in Indonesia. And it is, again, a guitar that at the number 1 spot is undoubtedly showing a popularity there amongst, it's at a sweet spot where young and old can buy that. Older guys can afford it. Younger guys, it's not, it's not a lot of bread to put on a card or finance if you can. So that's very interesting. And of course, with the 2, 3, and 4 spot being Fenders, 2 Strats and a Tele, that really gives you an indicator as to a market preference there, almost in a way. It's a small indicator, but it's it's not everyone, and I wouldn't put a bet on it in Vegas, but it's a strong indicator in itself. Now, Frederick Rogers in the house. Happy Christmas to you too. Blind Bob says, yeah, about 4 months ago I purchased the SC Silver Sky that was before it dropped to the $550 price range in my luck. Yeah, sorry, man. Sometimes it goes the other way. Sometimes, you buy it and it goes up the next week. Sometimes it goes the other way. But yeah, notice that those guitars are all within a certain range, price range. That's that $500 to $650 top on those. The top three. And so that says a lot about, people, I think, are wise. There's so many choices out there that people are starting to wise up in terms of what they can have. Bob again says, before I dropped the 550 or the 550 500, they were listing at 850, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, when they first, I do believe the MSRP on that when they first came out was up there, but street prices were a little bit lower, and then they got even a little lower than that. But still, in all, regardless of what price point you bought that at, I think that that's a solid guitar. The only thing about the SE that I would like to see is maybe a roasted neck, a little, because it's just too shiroi, a little bit too pale of wood. For my preference, I like a little color. In the case of my guitar necks, and but other than that, the body shape, the stock pickups, I played a few. It's an awesome guitar. It's fun. It's a fun guitar to play. Different. And I can see at that price point and the John Mayer connection and a few other things why people would be gravitating into it. And that's kind of where I want to go tonight. Tonight, the title of this live stream is Harley Benton and the Epiphone Pivot Up. And we're going to talk about guitars. It's a guitar live stream. I hope you don't mind. We are going to have a few topics that are guitar related here tonight. Now, I really want to start off by saying and reminding everybody that there's no such thing as a beginner guitar. There's no such thing. A beginner guitar is a marketing slogan. It's Bernays. It's advertising flim-flam in order to get you to get into the tier system of marketing. No, there's no such thing as a beginner guitar. A guitar is either a good guitar or it is a bad guitar. That is it. Now, when it gets into how much you want to spend, on that good guitar, hopefully, as long as it's good, it can be as little as, we've picked up some beauties here recently that have been talked about for $25, on up to whatever you want to spend on it. But regardless of which, whether if you get a guitar that is on the lower in price range and it's a good guitar, it's a good guitar. A pro can play it and can rock it as well as a beginner, so it's a good guitar. So this gets you, with this kind of thinking, it gets you out of thinking in that, okay, it's a beginner guitar, I got to get my son, or I don't want to get that because that's considered a beginner guitar. No, it's either a good guitar or it's a bad guitar. That's the only real thing that we deal with here. And I want to talk about a really good guitar. Actually, first, I should start out by saying that recently Epiphone's head of product development recently stated that it is being allowed by Gibson to reposition itself upwards in the market. Let me repeat that. This is coming directly from the head of product development for Epiphone. It recently stated that it was being allowed by the parent company to reposition itself upwards in the market. So there it is. We've been talking, 3-Chord Dave and I. Again, I'll give it to him first. We kind of met through the mutual thinking. Great minds think alike. And we were seeing this a while back, and it has now come to fruition. And we have the head of the product development, the guy who would know such information, just spilling the beans and saying, yes, indeed, that is our goal with Epiphone going forward. Now, I want to talk about a guitar called the Epiphone Elitist series. Some of you may be familiar with this. Some of you may not. They were discontinued in 2008. So quite a while now ago, 15 years. But they were quite interesting Epiphone guitars. They were produced in Japan, and they had one for domestic only sales, and then they had one that was geared towards export. There was small differences between those two, but let's discuss the Japanese ones, which are widely available now. Most people, as many folks that are going to Japan, it seems like everybody's flying to Japan these days. I find it so funny. It's not the Japan that I knew back in the 90s. That was a wild thing. But folks are getting there now, and they're starting to do YouTube clips about, hey, I'm going to the guitar shop in Japan and I'm looking at guitars, and it's a great thing. And they will stumble across an Epiphone Elitist. This Epiphone produced in Japan had a Gibson open book headstock. It was shot with poly, not nitro. It had Gibson hardware. It had Gibson pickups. It had a single truss rod. It had a solid top, not a veneer. They had solid tops on it, solid makeup flame tops, AAA tops on them. One piece neck, long neck tenon, and these were made. And also the difference was the ones that were exported to the United States had the old style Epiphone headstock. The one that precedes the current, inspired by Gibson, and now they've gone to open book, obviously. The one in Japan had the open, but the true Gibson Epiphone open book headstock like you would find on the Greenie, for example. Okay. Discontinued in 2008. Okay, Mike, that's all great history. That's all great. Where are you going with this? Well, why was it discontinued? You should ask yourself. That should be the question. Why was this guitar discontinued? That sounds awesome. As a matter of fact, that sounds like a better deal than we're getting today. And you'd be right. You'd be correct. During the Henry J. administration of Gibson, Henry J. looked at these and said, hey, these are beating out our lower end and mid-tier Gibsons, USA mates. They're people are snapping these up. Even the ones that had the headstock different, again, like I said, the difference between the domestic Japan and the export one. They were still snapping them up. And to this day, the owners of these guitars were very rare. They don't come up very often, and there's a reason. It's because, again, if you could look past what it said on the headstock or even the shape of the headstock, you were getting yourself an awesome guitar. And if you were lucky enough to get one of the Japanese editions, you were doing even better. Henry J. said, no, this is just really cutting into our margins on our lower and mid-tier Gibsons. So they discontinued it. Now, fast forward to today, we have started with the new administration, the Inspired by Gibson line, and now the Artist series Epiphones, like the recent Greenie and the Vela B, that series. But they are sub-elitist materials in build quality. But they're asking elitist prices. Elitists were a little bit more expensive. You paid a price for those. About which, if you did the exchange from yen to dollars during that time and then the inflation on that, you would find that they're asking then about what they're asking now for these Artist Series guitars from Epiphone. However, they had rosewood fretboards on them. They had solid AAA maple tops and mahogany backs. It wasn't a veneer. The build on these were, again, Gibson parts, so you weren't dealing with that metric stuff. You were dealing with Gibson, you could swap Gibson parts in these things. The pickups were Gibson pickups. And so for the same kind of money on something that they said, well, we don't want to build this anymore because it's screwing with our bottom line on our Gibson stuff. Now you have again the director of marketing, head of product development, saying we're going to upscale Epiphone, and you say to yourself, well, guys, you did this before, and you did it better than you're doing now. Mickey Newman says, picked up my Epi at least in 2010 for 300 used. Good job. One of the greatest guitar buys I ever made. Absolutely. And there you go. Mickey will tell you about it and what I'm talking about with these. Scratch your head and say to yourself, things that make you go, Well, wait a minute. So these elitists that they had back, and you can get them for a song, are far, 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 far better build and material quality than the equivalent price so-called upscaling that's occurring right now. Talk about schizophrenia in a company. That's something. Really, we are seeing this upward turn with Epiphones, but we are not seeing things that would justify the prices that they're asking. And as a result, from what I'm seeing, anecdotal evidence and things that I'm reading and that people are saying, that these models, the 1500, the upper price ones, are just not flying off the shelves. It's been a while since I've been down to Utrecht to Barry Witt's shop to check out anything that's new. I just haven't had time to go down there. But that's where I would go to see and kind of talk to him and see how these things were doing. I'd be very interested to hear what he'd have to say. From what I'm reading, no, these things are not exactly flying off the shelf. So what is Epiphone thinking? What are they thinking? Mickey Newman says, up the Epiphone prices to up the Gibson prices at the same time. Yeah. So it's not, it wasn't one of these 1, 2, it was 1. Everything went up. And again, this is the head of product development. I'll say it again. Reposition itself upwards in the market. How are you going to do that when the top 5, okay, top 3, sales on Reverb, which is a pretty good reflector, as I said, are PRS and Fender? First of all, you have to have, and I'm not saying that Epiphones and Gibsons aren't being used out there. I'm just saying that because they have priced themselves so high that the younger guys coming up, they'll look at it 2 ways. They'll look at it as aspirational, but we're not really going to mess with that right now because we can't afford to. Or they'll say that's, kind of lame and it's expensive, so why the heck would I want it? No, I'd rather have the SC, PRS, the Fender Player Series, Strat, or Tele. It isn't until you get to number 5 that you talk about it, and then that's the standard 60s. Which, again, speaks, in that case, and the number 6 after that I didn't mention was the standard 50s. So they had the number 5 and 6 position, but I find it interesting. Most people prefer the thinner neck on the 60s. That's a neck preference thing in that case. But still, they're not, they're not in the top 3. So you have to have a market there that you've captured, is what I'm arguing tonight, in order to, upscale to, or who are you selling to? What are you going to do? How are you going to these so-called mythical, upscale buyers of Epiphones? Who are these people? Who are I'm asking you guys because I don't know. And then what I do is I sell guitars that I don't know. I don't. I really don't. I have no idea. Dewey 7330's in the house. Welcome, Dewey. Good to see you, sir. I thought the reason Gibson stopped with Japan was cost. Japan started charging too much. Same reason why companies are leaving China now, costs are going up. Well, you're talking about the yen to dollar. Yeah, you got to remember during this time the yen was like 360 to the dollar. So the yen coming down, that had a lot to do with it. That's the cost, really. It's just with the exchange rate kind of threw the monkey wrench in that. China, it's not an issue of, to my mind, it's not really an issue of cost. What it really is, because they have, what it is that the coup and all of the chaos that ensued from there led most people to have to redirect their supply chains. And China kind of, they shut themselves down, and in a way they kind of shut themselves, they gave people an excuse to get out of that supply chain agreements, and they moved to India, Vietnam, different folks like that. You were going to see, guitars coming. Well, there are Indian-made guitars now. You're going to see a lot more Vietnamese and Indian-made guitars coming up from a lot of these companies as a result of that too. That used to be in China. So that was really what was behind that. It's overall. It's not just exchange rate. It's overall cost. I hear you. Yeah, but they're directly related because again, you got to pay your workers more. That's going to cost. And because it always comes down to the money. It really does. It really comes down to exchange rates. But in the case of China, so I'll give you that on Japan. But in the case of China, no, it was really about supply chain. People walked away from it. And so, where are you going to go with this is the question. Where are you going to go with this? And I'm throwing it out there to you guys because, again, I have no answer. Do Again says it's happening in the other industries, not just, oh, yeah, man, dig that. Yeah, it really is. A lot of cats are moving out of China, and it's hurting them. And it is going to lead to it is leading to instability there in the broader I guess you would say consumer markets there, because if you're not working, you're not buying. Matty Two Hats. Epiphone did a 1960s Les Paul Tribute Plus, and yeah, that was 2010. With a flame top and gets some tickets for about $1,000 here, about 5 years. That one was that 60 Les Paul Tribute was 2010, wasn't it? You sure? 5 years ago? I know the one from 2010, and everybody thought that this one that they came out, the 59, was supposed to be along the lines like that, because that one, to my knowledge, this 60 Les Paul Tribute, they came out. No, I'm confusing that with the 59 Tribute. That's right. I'm sorry. The 59 Tribute came out in 2010. The 60, that's right. It was 5 years ago. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Again, I really wonder. Thank you, Manny, for that, because that gets me back on track. Thank you. That points to the material construction. Again, it was a better made guitar than what they're offering now. Blind Bob, Gibson is always targeted upper end of the market. Well, yeah, they're, of course, and nobody ever really had a problem with that. If the guys who say Gibsons are too expensive, it's like, dude, that's a luxury item. That's like you're getting into the Rolex territory of guitars when you're talking about that. Lower end, but still the same concept. It's a luxury item. So if they want to do that, that's fine. But they always positioned Epiphone to be in that mid tier, that sweet spot that was in that list. The SE, the Player series, the Fender Player series, Strat, and Telecaster. That 550, 500 range, and that worked. People were digging them. When the Inspired by Gibson line came out and they were in and around that price, people were saying these are awesome Epiphones for this kind of money, and it really, really got Epiphone on track. And then, boy, they just slipped off the rails real hard when they started going upscale with it. They're okay, we got your attention now. Yeah, you got us attention because you're building what we consider to be really great guitars at a price that makes sense. No longer in a lot of these cases recently, but with these we saw that you're losing. You're not reading the tea leaves here. So it comes down to a value issue there. Again, hey, if you're going to make that kind of lateral move up, then you better make a fantastic value proposition to us that we cannot, deny. G Trim, the G in Gibson stands for agreed. Yeah, it stands for a lot of things. Good ain't one of them. Well, I guess that's unfair. They screwed the pooch so quickly. Yeah, that's my point. Wow, they fell off the rails with that one. They really did not read the room on that one. Wow, it's amazing. Again, anecdotal evidence of things that I'm reading, I haven't had a chance to see myself, but I'm understanding that these things are not flying off the wall. Mickey Newman, Squire Classic Vibes still look like a very value. Again, I found it interesting the Squire this year. I have to look back at last year's list and see if the Squires, because those were hidden last year. But yeah, but Squire Classic Vibes over here in Europe are expensive, as you know. They're not cheap. They're a lot more expensive over here than they are in the States. But still, people were snapping them up. And even with that added expense to them, it looked like a great value proposition to most people, me included. As you know, I got a Classic Vibes Telecaster. So it looked like a great profit, and it's a great guitar. Great Tele. But again, in that sweet spot. They're in that range. Again, there's a range there it's 550, 550, whatever you want to convert that over to, 550. It seems to be the sweet spot. If you can make a great value proposition and you can keep it in that 550, all right, we'll say 550 to 600 range, then you are killing it in terms of your sales. The minute you step out of those bounds, slip off the rails like Epiphone has been doing recently, the Adam Jones, the Greenie, we go on with a couple of them. Not taking away from them, still well-made guitars, but they're not as well-made as the elitist guitars that they were offering 15 years ago. That's just a fact. Matty Two Hats. Epiphone sales have been generally slow in Australia. Interesting. The 59 sold well and inspired by Gibson, not the others. Yeah. Again, that's it. We said, wow, this 59, I got mine for 700 euros out the door when it first came out. Some cats have got it for a little less. Some people paid a little bit more, but everybody was attracted to it as a value proposition, even with the Indian Laurel fretboard on it, and the fact that it wasn't, and questions about the construction being good, bad, or indifferent, but it was a value proposition that people really, really enjoyed, and they snapped them up, and then, as was mentioned, they screwed the pooch. We only see one or two of the Adam Jones in limited runs, so they sell in small numbers. Yeah, Maddie, that seems to have been the kind of concept, just smattering out to the distributors, not a whole lot. Mickey Newman says 550 to 600 is still serious. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for saying that. We're pointing out that's serious money, guys. It makes the 3,000 for the Gibsons just seem, dreamland, in comparison, It's the scale of these things that's why I started out saying, remember, keep it in mind, there's a good guitar, there's bad guitars. What you pay for that, you're trying to find a good guitar for the best price you can. And these guitars, inspired by Gibson, the 59, they were a great value proposition. Now, what they're offering and where they're planning on going is no bueno. It is not a value proposition to most folks. No longer. 550 to 600 is still a serious amount of money for probably 60% of the population. I'd say more than that, Mickey. I'd put it at 80%, and I'd be serious about that. That's serious. Most a lot of folks. Was that report that came out on Zero Hedge? I read seems to come out every year that most folks can't come with $500 in case of an emergency, cash. Most folks. So we're talking luxury. I mean, no, I'm sorry. That's it. I've said it before, and I'll say again. This again reinforces why I say I'm not spending that much more. I'm not doing it anymore. I've had the Gibsons. I've had all those. I've had all that stuff. And at the end of the day, the sweet spot is 550 because sonically, I'll get to it here in a minute. Sonically, what I mean. Sonically, in those price ranges, I haven't seen enough to really to make up for the astronomical price that they're charging for some of these things. I just can't. I can't do it anymore. And I deal in guitar. I have them coming through all the time. Get to play some awesome guitars. And I can tell you that this is a conclusion that I've come to. Dewey 7330 says, I noticed Epiphone wasn't on the best-selling list. Yeah, I dig that. Again, that list was, what wasn't there was equally as interesting, wasn't it? What was not included. We didn't see Squire or Epiphone, I do believe. Let me check that list again. I got it right here. Number 7 Fender, yeah. It was PRS, Fender, Gibson, Fender, PRS. So, dig that. What wasn't there? Squire wasn't there. Epiphone wasn't there. J Trim, I bought a 2004 Epi LP Standard, new old stock in 2006, made in Korea when Epi was changing manufacturing to China, and in my opinion, quality was lessened. It's gotten a lot better. Again, the Korean Epiphones are not well spoken of, and the early Chinese ones, they got better. Korean ones were never spoken well of. For some reason, I don't know. I've never encountered a Korean Epiphone. I haven't touched one, so I can't speak to that exactly. Bob says, show me every new guitar I buy is a blindfold challenge. And I'm not just saying that as a joke, although it is also. Yeah, man, you're using your ears, which is why I told everybody anyway. That's all. Joe Sixpack standing in the audience, he don't know the difference between a Fender headstock and a Gibson. He doesn't know, and he doesn't care either. He's, it's all up here. It's auditory. Unless, unless it's the Pussycat Dolls, and then that's visual. Mickey says, is the Epiphone Adam Jones worth the cost? Never seen one, let alone tried one. They are down to $9.99 over here now. Wow, already a reduction. Well, again, it's a Les Paul it's a custom. Is it worth the money? No. I told you, as a value proposition, it's got to come down a bit. Is it a fantastic built guitar? Yes, but not at the price that they're asking. It needs to come down. Bob says, the 50-acre arena its player I just purchased actually really surprised and impressed me sound-wise. Yeah, there's, again, so let's get into that. So that goes into the Harley Benton aspect of this. I don't think so, Mickey, even if you're a massive Tool fan. Yeah, you'd have to be a massive Tool to buy one. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. That was bad. I retracted. Harley Benton is in the title tonight. I want to talk about this Harley Benton bass. So this is my Harley Benton jazz bass. I bought this Harley Benton jazz bass when I had I sold my Fender, I sold my Gibson and Fender collection 3 years ago because the market was just going crazy. and I could get the kind of money that I thought they were worth. And I sold them. The only thing I was bummed out about is it left me without a bass guitar. And I was starting, I was in the middle of setting up the studio here. It's when I first moved here 3 years ago. Setting up the studio, getting ready to record and finish, which ended up taking 3 years, but finishing the last album, Ants in the Pantry. It left me without a bass guitar. And so I bought this Harley Benton bass B-stock. B-stock, guys. I am yet to figure out what it was that made this a B-stock. There's no flaws, there's no dings, there's nothing that I could find on this. I took the guitar in, I set it up the way that I like it, I made adjustments to the pickups the way that I like it, and let me tell you something. The reason I bring this up, I was listening to Ants in the Pantry the other day. I was just chilling, and I said, hey, you know what, let me just listen to that, cheer myself, listen to some of my music a little bit, and just kind of go through it. And half the album was recorded with a Fender jazz bass. The other half was recorded with this Harley Benton jazz bass. And when you listen to the tracks that had the Fender jazz bass on it, like Belly Dancer or The Well or things like that, compared to the tracks that had this on it, like Mr. Sun, for example, I could not tell the difference in tone between those two bass guitars. Going through the same rig, same player, different basses, Harley Benton jazz bass, Fender Japan jazz bass. They weigh the same, they feel the same. Once I got it set up, I couldn't tell you the difference between this guitar and that Fender Japan jazz bass that I had. And sonically speaking, I can honestly say that you really couldn't do worse with this bass guitar. It's awesome, and it is a fraction of the price of what I sold that Fender bass for. It was a deal that made me smile because I got the value out of that Fender, and for a little bit of that Fender bass money, I was able to replace with this Harley Benton bass, and there has been no difference to me at all. It's to me, it's as if I didn't, I didn't do anything there because they play the same, they feel as they're the same weight, exact same weight. They're both boats. And recording wise, I just didn't miss a beat there. And impressed me with Harley Benton's. I was highly, highly impressed with them, actually. Harley Benton is a good guitar for the money. And they have positioned them, Thomann, being Harley Benton being Thomann's house brand. They may have a manufacturer make them for them and then ship them to Germany. They do a little finishing work on them and then they sell them directly to the customer. That's why the price of them. For the materials that you're getting a good guitar for the money. So it makes it a great value proposition to a lot of people because the reputation of Harley Benton slowly has started to improve. I certainly never heard of them really until I came here I moved here to Europe, and I decided for that kind of money, I think I paid less, 170 euros I think I paid for this at the time. Now, materials have changed. I'll put a little asterisk on that. Materials have changed again, like I was talking about. Distribution systems change. I don't know if they're making them like this one 4 years ago when this one was made. I don't know if they still make them like this, but as it stands, this one is just awesome. I haven't changed a thing on it. And in terms of staying in tune, you guys know it's always sitting here behind me. I've actually moved it to the front now. Give it a little bit more respect. other than leaning against this wall behind me. Leaning there against the wall until went in there, and it was still just almost in tune, just a little off. Great tuners on it, great sounding pickups on it. Would never touch a thing on this, and I got it for a song. It's a great guitar for the money. In other words, it is a great value proposition, which attracts people. A bad value proposition, like the direction that Epiphone is going in, repels people. A good value proposition like these Harley Bentons, which are filling in. Now, again, this is not to say that Epiphones aren't available in this price range, but the Epiphones in the price range of these Harley Bentons aren't that great. It isn't really until you get again into the $450, $500 range that you start getting into a decent Epiphone. But some of these Harley Bentons can be had for a lot less than that. And I would say that as a value proposition, they're giving Epiphone a run for their money. Bob says, sorry guys, speech to text is not working well tonight. Boy oh boy over the text to speech. That's all right. Don't worry about it. We're just glad you're here, Bob. You don't have to, worry about that. We're just really, really pleased to have you around, sir. But dig that. They are a value proposition that are attracting more people. Now, they opened up a warehouse for distribution in the United States. However, that made the price still a little higher there. But they're starting to spread out there a little bit more, and people are starting to get hit of them. One guy took one out, a Vegas musician used one this last year for his professional work and show that you can gig a Harley Benton. No problem. So they're developing an audience, not just here in Europe, but they've spread out into other countries as well. Most folks nowadays know what a Harley Benton are. It's just not true even 5 years ago. But because of YouTube and a lot of other things, they are starting to get around, and they're filling in that void. Epiphone is making that pivot up, and Harley Benton saw the opportunity there to slide into that area with a guitar, in some cases, that is far superior than what Epiphone is offering in that same price range. Again, it comes down to value propositions at all levels. But certainly Epiphone might have really screwed the pooch, as was said here, because they may have lost, through their machinations, a bit of a market share that I don't know that they're going to be able to recapture. There's that. Now, when I say a Harley Benton is a good guitar for the money, you're still going to have to do work on it. But heck, that's true of just about every production guitars, even up to including Gibsons and Fenders. You have to sometimes do a little work on them. They're going to need work, but are there better guitars out there than Harley Bentons? Yeah, sure. Are there better guitars out there for the money? No, not really. No. I suppose that, as with the case again, like I was saying, with any guitar, upgrades are going to make it better anyway. Now, Agile is another name I could throw out there, but they're for sale right now. So they're like BC Rich and Dean guitars. They're a little shaky. So with them being up for sale right now, I can't see much of a future there until that gets squared away. But so that doesn't really put them into play. because they're not going to put any money in R&D right now when they're up for sale. It's just that's not what's happening. So not really agiles either. Really, that doesn't really work either, does it? So Harley Benton is really positioned because of a value proposition to slide in there. Why do we always have to end? That's a good guitar for the money. If it's not expensive, a good guitar is a good guitar, right? Yeah, like I said, and we open this up. We said there's no such thing as a beginner guitar. There are good guitars and there are bad ones, and that's about it. And what you want to pay, and what you deem to be a good guitar, and no, that's not even deemed. That's not even an individual thing. A good guitar is a good guitar. I would understand. Hey, it's a good guitar, but it's not for me. Or, hey, that's a good guitar. I dig it. That's it. That's the only thing there that can be discussed. So, Harley Bentons really make it into an interesting value proposition there, don't they? They certainly do. And as a result of that, it would not surprise me in 5 years' time to see them slide into that position that Epiphone has decided to evacuate. Now, of course, we're talking sub 500s, by the way, which I think most people are going to. If I can get a sub $500 guitar like a Harley, like this bass right here, which I do, and I think it's awesome, which I do. It actually was sub 2. It was less than 200. I paid for it because it was B stock. Then I'm a happy camper. I'm really happy these days. It doesn't take much to please me anymore. I'm getting easier in my old age. And I recognize this bass guitar as being, really, I've recorded with this. I would gig. I'd take this out on stage. I'd gig with it. I would, and I will. And I don't feel the need for another bass guitar. I'm really funny about bass guitars. I get one and that's it. It's just like acoustics. I get one. If it's a good one, I'm good. Acoustic guitar, same thing. I've had that Yamaha for a long time now, since the 90s. And this Harley Benton, See, I don't care about resale value either. Because I didn't look at it from that viewpoint. I said I need a bass guitar that I'm going to hold on to. Heck, it's great actually that it doesn't have resale value. I won't be tempted to trade it for something. Amen, Mike, preaching to the believers. Yeah, I'm preaching to the choir. I know I'm preaching to the choir tonight. But this statement by the product development head at Epiphone triggered me to this discussion tonight. Jaluti, I have an Harley Benton 52 Telecaster. It's great out of the box. Yeah, I had that Mad Cat reissue that they did, and I took it down to Fern and we put some little bit better electronics in it, and we gave it away to a children's music school. And I was proud to give that guitar to those kids because that's an awesome guitar. Whatever kid gets that guitar, it's a boat. It was heavy, but you're young, you can handle it. But it's a great friggin' guitar, and it was great out of the box. And we made it even better, which is what I was saying. They're great guitars for the money, but they are going to need some work. But sometimes they don't. Again. This bass, I haven't changed a thing. I haven't changed it. You guys know me by now. There's always some Mike's going to do something. I haven't done a thing to this, and I'd be stupid to touch it. Because again, I cannot tell the difference between this and that Fender Japan that I just can't. I can't. It feels the same. I am a jazz bass player because of John Paul Jones. When I was a kid and I was taking up bass and I was looking at John Paul Jones and listening to Led Zeppelin, Houses of Holy, I was like, that's the sound that I'm looking for. That's the sound that got into my head, interestingly enough. And what does he play? Oh, he plays a Fender jazz bass. Okay, well, I've got to play a jazz bass. And I've always played a jazz. I've never played a P bass. I don't like playing P basses. I don't like the sound of it. It doesn't work with me. Anyway, I can get those sounds out of a jazz bass. But really, in this case, I was not disappointed with this one. And again, it'll be my jazz bass. You know, it'll be all I need. And I'm not thinking about getting anything else. Don't need anything else. And I laugh. I do. Because I can't remember what I sold that Fender for, but it was a pretty penny because it still had its original gig bag. And it was 83, 82 Fender jazz bass. And it was great. I used it for recording every album that I did up to this last one, and including half of this one was that Fender jazz bass. But this one took its place, and I cannot tell the difference. I just can't. Great looking bass. I used to have Matty Two Hats. Great looking bass. I used to have the Squire version and did all my recording for advertising with it. Yeah, all the work I did for P&G, I did using this bass. The song I did, what was that? The Dove with the dun 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 per word. What is that song? Something anyway. The track I did for that TV commercial, the 15 and the 30-minute spot. You know, all the TV commercial work I did was a Fender bass, my Fender bass. And this one has taken over for it, and I don't think I would know the difference. Mickey Newman, still have my 1974 jazz bass, only bass I've ever used. Yeah, you get one, you know, again, like I said, I it was prudent for me to sell that one. But again, you know. So again, a good bass is a good bass. A good guitar is a good guitar. A good set of golf clubs is a good set of golf clubs. A bad set of golf clubs, a bad bass, and a bad guitar, all those things have that in common as well. But there's no such thing as a beginner set of golf clubs. There's no such thing as, unless it's kid size, and that's just small golf clubs. But you know, so our qualifier is good and bad. Our goal, you know, what we're trying to zero in on is value proposition. Am I getting good value for where is that sweet spot where it's a little bit of money, but it's a great value? Where is it? Where's that sweet spot? And that's where we're always looking. And that's what we should be looking for. And Gibson and Epiphone, they can make all the, you know, $1,499 guitars. Well, it's actually $1960 over here when you do the exchange. So it's a little bit more, getting close to $2,000 on that Adam Jones, on this Greenie, on these other guitars. Nah, you know, just not something that is a value proposition to me and to most people. Because again, you know, yeah, that Adam Jones is a sweet freaking guitar. I touched it. I got a chance to touch it down there and to strum it and to hold in my hand. So I've held one. And again, it had that gravitas to it. However, it is still not as good as guitar as the Elitist they discontinued back in 2008. I know that because I've held a lot of those, and you know, it's just it's not a good value proposition to me. Harley Bentons are going to be hit and miss. I'm not saying they're all great out of the box. We've had some great testimonials here, which shows you at least they're getting better, or you know, they're not as bad as some people would say, because you've had at least 2 or 3 people, including myself here, saying that out of the box it was good to go. And that was the case of both Harley Bentons that I bought, you know, this bass guitar and that Bad Cat. They were good out of the box. But it's a value proposition. And I really wonder when the head of product development says they want to reposition itself upwards in the market, what kind of value proposition are you going to make to the market to justify and make them feel that that expense is justified? And I just don't see it. I just don't. And I think it's starting to show. Mickey Newman. The Jet guitars make some great, parts. Yeah, that's a great one, Mickey. Jet. Yeah, Jets are good. Yeah, I can vouch for that. I have touched a few Jet guitars in my hands. Matty Two Hats. Gibson guitars run by CEOs for CEOs. Well, again, guys, they're lifestyle guys. They got the jeans and they got, the leather coats and, the accoutrements of a rock and roll guy, whatever the F that is, I know we have young folks out there, so I will curb my language. I keep it PG as always here on this channel, but what the heck, man? What the heck? It's a lifestyle that it reminds me of that George Carlin joke. It's a big club, but you and I aren't in it. And I look at these guys, and there's no aspect or anything about them. I guess Cesar is okay, but he's the epitome of that, isn't he? Yeah, it's interesting to me. It's rock and roll with a lot of qualifiers on it. And this is the way it is, That's the way it is. I understand he's a good guitar player. That's always good, but there was two occupational choices, and gigging musician wasn't one of them. Guess which one pays more? Ironically. Dig that. So, there's that, guys. It's value propositions. And the value proposition always starts with a good guitar. Is it a good guitar? If it's a good guitar, what are you asking for? And what justifies that? And is this something that I want to do? Matty Two Hats. Rock and roll to me should be all the glory at a fraction of the price. Well, I touched on that last week. That's what I was saying. That Gibson, man, they've been running on fumes for 20 more years. Because that's why they keep rehashing, 50 different slashes and 60 different, greenies and 20 different this, that, and the others, or they're starting to give YouTubers their own collection, is because they're reaching. They're trying to find any tenuous thing to real rock and roll that they can continue selling these things on, and hope that somewhere, somehow, somebody who's hot decides that they want to play a Gibson and get that, that slash kind of a wave, that Page kind of wave, those Dwayne Allman kind of. But we're talking about, again, like I said, fumes of 20 years ago, the ghosts of Christmas past. So yeah, that's their shtick, and that's not for us. And again, you look at that list. Apparently, it's not for most folks. It's not a good value proposition, and most folks are saying, okay, let's move on to the value proposition, which means that if you're a company like Fender or PRS and you can make that kind of value proposition to folks and they buy them, guess what happens? You capture more market share. When you capture more market share, then you dictate what is and what isn't cool. See how that works? It's a fight there. Dewey says, but they continue to sell guitars. Look at the list. Yeah. I'm not saying they're not selling. This is not the discussion about whether they're selling them or not. We're talking about motives here. What are motives? And do these motives make sense to us as consumers? And also, again, pointing out that these are, again, luxury items. And also pointing out that most people can't come up with $500 cash to pay an emergency bill if it comes up. So even in the $500, $600 range, you're talking about a serious investment for most people. So, and the guitars on that list, the top three are value proposition guitars. They're all in the $550 to $650 range. And they all have a great value proposition to them that people obviously cannot resist. And so you capture market share as a result of that. And then you get to dictate with how, the story. And so Gibson is saying to themselves, well, I guess we'll just go for that guy who wants, who wants either the name on the headstock because of the pedigree of it, or the aspirational aspects that we've created because we've created this tier system and this market, and you're willing to play that game. Those are the people who are interested in buying those. Everybody else is not in that list now, are they? So there is that. Yeah, I myself, I really dig that Squire that I have sitting out front that I put together. I'm very much looking forward. I don't have much to look forward to these days, to be honest with you guys. But one of the things that not in a dismal sense, but just in the standard, I'm in a little bit of a bland spot right now, which is okay. We have those bland times in our lives, but nothing really exciting me. But the one thing that is exciting me is the second Squire build, Parts Caster build, where I took that 2001 Affinity parts and neck and body parts and whatnot, and I resurrected it into something new. That Fernsworth, I can't wait to get that guitar and show that off. That excites me. But still, I'm not in, the cost of those two guitars is what it would cost me to buy one classic vibe right now. So that, to me, is a value proposition that is attractive to me at the moment. But again, that comes down to being able to source the parts in order to build those and rebuild those and put those together. But I find these part casters to be satisfying because I'm in touch with the guitar. It's a great value proposition to me, and it's a heck of a lot of fun, especially deciding on paint color. I know I was going to go with charcoal gray on the one I'm planning on doing the spray job on, but I got the neck for it. It's a roasted maple neck with abalone inlays on it, and I think I might have to change the color that I was planning, but that's okay. That's just, in this case, buying a different color spray can if they have the color I'm thinking. Yeah, I got the neck for that. I'll show that to you guys at a point. That's a Christmas present. I'm not gonna unwrap that until next week. But in any case, yeah, that's exciting to me. So the value proposition there is, to me, is a great one because, like I said, it's me screwing, sanding, painting, stripping, buffing, aligning, and doing all those things myself, building these guitars, and it's great fun. And I found that I can do it by sourcing from different places and scrounging around. I can do it for relatively cheap. And they're not just good guitars, they're awesome guitars. They're great. When Fern is done with my second Squire, I just know it's going to be great. I walked into the shop the other day to drop something off, and the neck was there, and I was looking at it. I was like, wow, that's a great looking Squire neck laying there on the table. And he picked it up, and he's like, oh, I did this too. I got this sanded off here so it'll fit the joint perfectly. And I said, that's my neck? He said, yeah, this is the neck that you did. I was like, holy crap. Because I hadn't seen it in a few weeks. I was like, holy crap. It looks good. Again, that was the story I told you guys. I did a linseed oil and beeswax finish on that neck. And it's starting to set in. It's starting to darken. That linseed oil is starting to darken. That beeswax is starting to harden and set in. It just feels beautiful. Fern says I did a great job. And coming from Fern, that was a great compliment. That was a great. That I did a good job on that. I didn't even recognize it. I did not even recognize it until he picked it up and said, "Yeah, this is your Squire neck." I was like, "Crap," because he deals with Squires down there all the time. So yeah, so there's the value to me, myself personally. You yourselves, you can determine within yourself what's a good value proposition that works for you. And this extends out, of course, to a lot of aspects of our lives, but sticking with guitars for tonight and bass guitars, just find out what that sweet spot is. What is a good guitar? That's not a good guitar is a good guitar. Okay, we established that. What is the value that works for you? And and you can find a good guitar at a lot of different price points. Secondhand market is full of fantastic guitars, great guitars, not just good guitars, but great guitars at all price points. If you dig around, you can give them $50. There's no excuse anymore for anybody to not have a good guitar. I didn't say expensive. I said a good guitar. There's no excuse for anybody at any price. You can get them out there for $25 if you dig far and you know what you're looking for. You do a little research, a little homework. $50, $60. It can be had out there on the secondhand market. A good guitar. So there's no excuse to have a bad guitar these days. There's no excuse for that because there's just too many good ones out there. It's not like when I was growing up. We had to deal with K. We had to do all these Japanese imports that Taiko. We had to deal with all these. I told you guys that I grew up on. God, I can't even think of the name of that company now. I talked about it all the time, but not the best. They were not the best instruments, and some of them were bad guitars. But that was all we had, so we had to make it work. No, not these days. There's too many good guitars out there in the secondhand market, floating around at the pawn shops, at the flea markets, different spots. Stay away from our plots and Craigslist. But you can find a good deal at any price point on a good guitar. So there's no excuse. I'll end with that tonight. That you really are living, I've said it before, I'll say it 1,000 times, you are living in a golden age out there when it comes to musical instruments. And those out there in their 20s that are listening in to my show, listening to this live, you are very fortunate. You in that regard if you're playing guitar or bass. And I have owned several Gibsons. Would I buy another one again? No, I wouldn't. Because when I was presented with the value proposition of that 1959 Epiphone and that Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s, I said, you know what? There's value here that works better for me. And that money, difference between the two of those, that money could be well invested somewhere else. So that's when I began down that road of value propositions myself. That's where, the concept of I'm good came from, the origins of that. But that's always been around since I was younger because I could only afford what I could afford. So I've always learned to say I'm good. You can always do better. Man, I did 2 hats. I've had 6 Gibsons, just have 1 SG left. Yeah, I've had... How many did I end up there? At one point, guys, I had a half a dozen myself. Yeah. Isn't that the way you end up? Most guys who have Gibsons, it's not just 1 or 2. Once they start coming through, you end up having like 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. And some cats hold on to them. And then you got most guys that I run into and say, well, I only really kept one because it was the only one that I dug. Yeah. Mickey Newman, I'm good is my mantra now. Yeah, it's a mantra. I learned it, like I said. I went through the fire. I went through the fire, the gates of Mordor, in order to learn this lesson. I learned it the hard way with my wallets so that you guys don't have to. You can take the advice or you can leave it, but it's always a value proposition. It always starts. Last time again, it's good guitar. Okay, it's a good guitar. Where can we find a good guitar at a value that works for me? And that can be in the $10,000 range. It can be in the $25 range. But nowadays, there is no excuse to not be able to find a good guitar, even in that price range. And I know it's an astounding thing to say, 25 bucks, Mike, really? Yes. Yes, out there, if you dig around, if you stumble around, if you look hard enough, yeah, they can be found. Dreams do come true. There's a lot of steals out there. They can be had. A good guitar. I'm not saying that it's a top, but I'm saying that it's a good guitar. Like a used Epiphone. Old used Epiphone. Somebody will be giving away for nothing at a garage sale for 25 bucks. Hey, that's a good guitar. Probably. Value proposition. All right. That's it. We are done for this evening. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Harley Benton and the Epiphone pivot up. I found it interesting. I cracked myself up. I was listening to last week's live stream, and that stuff about Canarium just really absolutely Ford Hammy, Shazam! Shazam, bro. How you doing? We're getting ready to wrap up here. I was talking about last week with that Canarium wood in the Epiphone. That cracked me up. That still cracks me up. Ben Omar, thanks, Mike. Great show. Take care, everybody. Merry Christmas. Hey, guys, I'm having a Christmas show next Sunday night. If you have time to join in, I will be sitting here, same time, same bad channel, next Christmas Eve. We're going to talk about some things. We're going to unwrap some things here. We're going to share a little eggnog. We're going to have a good one, a good long one, too, I hope. So, yeah, next Sunday I will be here. So you guys tune in. Don't miss out. If I don't see you, if you cannot make it, if you got family obligations, you're doing traveling, things like that, please be safe. And I wish you a Merry Christmas and really all the best. So thanks, guys. See you next week. Ciao.